Hello everyone, welcome to the Nightly News. I'm your host, Kayla Patterson. The escalating conflict in Ukraine has been on everyone's mind since the Russian invasion began. To give us a better understanding of the conflict at this time, here's Hannah Cook with more.
Thanks, Kayla. Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine appears to be intensifying. Russian troops have been moving in towards the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, but are currently stalled on the outskirts of the city. However, this has not stalled the destruction of the capital. Just yesterday, missiles were fired at the Babyn Yar Holocaust Memorial. Kyiv is a heavily populated city of just under 3 million, and despite Russian claims of avoidance of civilians, there has been many casualties. At this point, there is an estimated 1 million Ukrainians who are now refugees in some of the other bordering countries. Kayla, back to you.
Alexis Hildenbrandt now for another angle of the story.
With every invasion, bomb, brutal killing, and more, Ukraine is doing their best to hold strong against Russia. With the ongoing crisis happening overseas, I wanted to ask Furman students their thoughts about the war. Could you please tell me your thoughts about the war in Ukraine?
The war in Ukraine? I think it's pretty crap what Russia's doing. It's very aggressive. I think for the world, it's kind of a new moment in the digital age and social media. We see the way that everyone can react and you can share it, and all the clips and the different things that we've been seeing. It's pretty crazy to see like a new modernized kind of war.
Thank you so much.
It's a historically complex situation, and I think it's like a different war than usual because of like the Russian ties in Ukraine, which I think is also making it a lot different than what we've seen. But I think the combination of like the UN and NATO are doing a pretty good job right now. It is stressful though.
What are your thoughts on the situation in the war in Ukraine?
Well, I think it's incredibly sad what's happening to the Ukrainian people. I think we're during unprecedented times with the Ukrainian president fighting alongside his troops, as well as now Switzerland, who's normally remained pretty neutral in almost all conflicts. You know, they've like seized over 11 billion in Russian assets. But it is definitely scary knowing that Putin can be pretty irrational, and he's only becoming more isolated as Ukrainian soldiers and people have fought back in an unprecedented way. And I think there's fears that he might become even more erratic with his future decisions in this process. But I'm just hoping that we can find peace and that the refugees from Ukraine can be accepted and helped in every way that we possibly can.
Hoping that I can do something about it. I don't know what to do. 'Cause you can't just think and pray. And just say, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying about you, you had to do something, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know what I think. Actually, I know what I think, but I don't know what I'm going to do.
Next, Caroline Brickle will share some resources on how to help the people in Ukraine. I'm Alexis Hildenbrandt with the Nightly News.
Now more than ever, society is experiencing warfare through the lens of social media. TikTok, Instagram, television, and varying media outlets are providing first-hand accounts of life on the ground in Ukraine. For many, simply watching the events unfold on their screens is just not enough. There are various ways you can try to make a change, such as these organizations. Be Strong is a nonprofit organization that donates their money to help relocate, feed, and support Ukrainian refugees on the Polish and Ukrainian border. 100% of the donations go directly to help out. With active fighting ongoing, determining the true extent of medical needs in Ukraine remains challenging. Doctors Without Borders have emergency team forces that have arrived at the Polish-Ukrainian border and are currently trying to get essential medical supplies into Ukraine. They plan to set up emergency response activities across both sides of the border. Children suffer most from its consequences. UNICEF works to ensure that Ukraine's children have access to safe water, nutrition, healthcare, education, and protection. These nonprofit organizations are a great source to help Ukrainian refugees. To make it easy for you to help, we've put the links to their websites under the show on our YouTube channel. Go visit them to find out more on how to donate.
We know the ongoing crisis in Ukraine affects many of you who might have loved ones who may be in the region or have personal experiences that are causing you grief or anxiety about the situation. Sydney Stevens tells us about some resources available to students who may be suffering from stress and anxiety due to the situation.
Thanks, Kayla. For all of us, I think the situation creates concern and angst about the future. If you're feeling you need some additional resources to help you through this time of uncertainty, you can contact the Office of Spiritual Life at 864-294-2133 and located here at Daniel Memorial Chapel. You can also contact the Counseling Center at 864-294-3031 and the Student Life Office at 864-294-2202 to set up an appointment. You can also reach the Counseling Center's 24/7 hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or by texting HOME to 741741. Student groups like the Paladin Peer Support Group and the Palomine Meditation groups are additional resources on campus. We offer our concern, our support, and our prayers for everyone who has lost a loved one, has been injured, for first responders, and for those who have lost homes and livelihoods in the days ahead. Let us all be mindful of each other and the weight others may be carrying because of the violence happening overseas.
Thanks, Sydney. At 4:30 on the first and third Tuesday of the month, a grief group meets on campus for students who have lost a loved one to come together to provide support and understanding. For more information on the group and how to join, contact Kate Tabor. I am a member of this group, and after the sudden loss of my dad, I have found a community that has given me support and provided a sense of common understanding. It's comforting to know that although college is supposed to be the best 4 years of our lives, there is a group of us who are struggling together, and I am not the only student dealing with the loss of a parent or loved one. If you are struggling, I encourage you to join us. Turning now to education. If you aren't familiar with some of the new bills that the South Carolina State House is trying to push through, here's some information that may concern you. Under Bills 4325, 4343, 534, 4392, 4799, and 4605, if they were to pass, teachers will be restricted in what topics they are able to teach in the classrooms. These topics include current events, sexual orientation, gender, critical race theory, and political activism.
This bill is important to fight because bills that limit what you're able to teach in a classroom is really going to have a negative impact on academic freedom. In the case of these bills, it's going to keep some topics outside of the classroom, and these topics still have lasting impacts that are impacting our students today. And cutting off that conversation is not going to help our society in the future. It's going to give us a weakness about something that we cannot talk about because we haven't engaged in it critically. So the big problem with this bill is choosing to remove certain topics from a classroom setting when that's exactly where you should have these critical conversations.
By the way, there is a clause in these bills that affects any institution that gets state money. That includes private universities like Furman. To read more about these bills in depth, visit scstatehouse.gov. The Communication Studies Department and the Art Department are working together to get a new minor approved for fall 2022 that will encompass both communication and graphic design courses for students interested in a marketing career. Department Chair Dr. MacArthur tells us more.
I think that the visual strategy minor will give an avenue for students who are really interested in marketing and interested in visual production to be able to take some concentrated classes in those areas that'll help them build their vocational and avocational interests.
Have you ever wondered if social media is worth it? On Wednesday, March 16th at 5:45 in Burgess Theater, there will be a panel made of both faculty and students who will share their personal relationships with social media and its impacts. Then, on Thursday, March 17th, at 4 in Furman Hall 214, there will be a guest lecture from Dr. Fia Salter. She will talk about her research, which will help students understand the impact that systematic racism has. Lastly, at 5, that same day, the Communication Studies Department is holding a CLP Wisdom from Winston to honor the power that speech has to bring people together and promote change. That will be in the amphitheater. Many of you may remember Dr. John Armstrong, who was a longtime professor here in the Communication Studies Department. He started this broadcasting class. He retired in 2020, but we have a lectureship in his honor. The John S. Armstrong Lecture in Media and Democracy is endowed, and he will give the first talk on the topic. So join us Monday, March 14th in Watkins Room in Trone. By the way, this is also a CLP. These past 2 weeks, we joined one of our reporters, Carly Hart, on the Seeking Abraham tour so that we can learn more about our campus's history with slavery and what they are doing to right its wrongs. We now join Carly again to finish off the tour.
Thanks, Kayla. Last week, we heard from Savannah Hobby about Clark Murphy and the changes that are being made with this sign. Now we turn to Dr. Nabonet to learn more about Clark Murphy and what he and this building represented for the women of the college.
I'm standing here in front of Clark Murphy Housing, which used to be known as Lakeside Housing, and it's a huge set of dorms. And so whether it's Gambrell or Judson or Childs, these are all names from the old women's college. And so Furman merged. There were two Baptist schools in Greenville. There was the Greenville Women's College and there was Furman University. And the Furman was only for men. And over the 20th century, those two schools were in a process of merging. And so we go from busing people from campus to campus. So the men would take some classes at the women's college, but mostly the women would take classes at the men's at Furman. One of the reasons for the move here to Travelers Rest was to really truly merge those two institutions as one without the busing back and forth. With that merger, though, there's still segregation between women and men. So the men were on the other side of campus over there in South Housing, and the women were over here in Lakeside. Clark Murphy is taking care of everything at Furman. He's in charge of the grounds, yes, but also what we would think today is counselor and doctor for the students. So he's bringing them prescriptions. He's taking care of women who've fallen ill. He's also everything in terms of facilities, maintenance. He was fixing the furnace and actually kind of innovative in the way they took notes about how he figured out solutions when nobody else, the white contractors and others in the area, couldn't figure out how to get the heating to work properly in that building. This is obviously the bell tower, which most of you know. The bell tower was connected to the original Richard Furman Hall downtown. So this is a replica of the one downtown. What's interesting about the bell tower is the original bell tower downtown, the 1850 bell tower, it was constructed by enslaved labor, at least in part. And so the bricks that would have been inside that stuccoed surface had been, the mortar and the bricks had been mixed by enslaved people. And we know this because in the records it says Vardry Macbee's boy, such and such as boy. And that was a way of referring to, in the time, enslaved people. If you take a look over here, you've got the Old College and the Bell Tower Circle over there. One thing to know about the Bell Tower Circle is that the bricks that are down there in the loop, inside that circle, are actually from the Old College. And so the one spot that we know for sure that those bricks could have been enslaved made bricks would have been in that circle right there. Last thing I'll point out is the Old College. That in 1850 was the only structure that Furman was using to have classes. So in that little tiny white building, there was actually a divider, and there was two rooms. On one side would be your humanities classes, and on one side your math and sciences. If in 1850 Furman had moved to Greenville and said, we need hastily constructed a quick building to house our entire university's classes, the going architecture, the thing they would have known how to build very quickly, were slave cabins.
Thank you for joining us on this tour. Now that you know this information about Furman, I want you to reflect and think about the other changes you want to see made on this campus. I'm Carly Hart, reporting for Nightly News. Kayla, back to you.
This past Friday, we kicked off the weekend celebrating Black History Month coming to a close with the Yard Show. Here's that story.
The Yard Show was a way to raise awareness into Black culture with steps and strolling on Furman's campus. Strolling is a long-standing tradition which gives a visual representation of the bond that ties together members of an organization. Kappa President Patrick Carolina says one goal of the Yard Show is to create interest for their organization.
Getting our name out and showing some of the things that we do, as well as just educating the Furman's population on things that hasn't been here in a very long time. So now that they're here, just re-educating people, because a lot of students that are here haven't been introduced to any of that or know of any of that. So really mostly educating Furman's population.
Ladies said they wanted more. They changed the game and put us on top. Ever since then, we could not be stopped.
Drew Washington, who is the student body president, attended the show.
I think it'd be good for Furman and kind of show us a new flavor of things, you know?
I want people to be open to engaging with the Black Greek organizations on campus, and not see it as something foreign, as just another part of campus to where there is another space for people to interact with.
To take their place as part of the Furman campus, the Yard Show swept up the community in nostalgia. Not only were students performing, but they were also joined by legacies.
And it's Hollywood, we are here to stay. I hope you understood. We look around, no one in sight. You about to get left if you don't get right. Let's go.
Here on the Joseph Vaughn Plaza, where we are challenged to add to Furman's greatness, this group stepped into theirs.
Great way to close out celebrating Black History Month. Paladins have been hitting it hard on the court and in the field. Here's Neci Harris with sports.
Thanks, Kayla. We're skipping highlights today because most everyone played away last week. Men's basketball lost to Samford on Wednesday, 75-83, but redeemed themselves Saturday against the Citadel, beating them 95-54, which keeps them ranked number 2 in the SoCon, heading into the SoCon Conference next week. Women's basketball swept the weekend, first beating Chattanooga 64-43 for Coach Carson's 100th SoCon win, and taking down ETSU 62-51 Saturday. They are currently ranked 4th in SoCon. Women's tennis left this weekend with 2 wins and a loss. The first win was 4-3 against number 26 Alabama, then a loss to number 10 Oklahoma State, 0-4, and lastly a win against number 24 Texas Tech, winning 4-2 to finish the weekend. Men's tennis split the weekend with a loss against Old Dominion, losing 0-4, but redeeming themselves at the end of the weekend, beating Richmond 4-0. Women's golf tied for 10th on the first day of the Darius Rucker Intercollegiate, looking to push further up in the ranks for the next couple of days. Anna Morgan ended the day 1 in first place, had a tough day yesterday, and started Wednesday off at number 13. Here's wishing them good luck. After some of their games were rained out over the weekend, softball had wins all across the board for the weekend, with an 8-0 win against George Mason on Friday and a 10-5 win against them on Saturday, and a 6-2 win over Iona later that day. We saw a lot of success this past weekend at the SoCon Championships for cross country and track. For the men's, Jonah Dill placed 5th in the 60-meter hurdle, Cameron Ponder placed 1st in the mile final, and Aaron Ware behind him in 2nd. Dylan Schubert and Carson Williams placed 2nd and 3rd in the 5,000-meter. Megan Marvin placed 1st in the women's 800-meter finals. Bethany Graham and Megan Ford placed 2nd and 4th in the mile. And lastly, Madeline Cadeau placed 1st in the 5,000-meter, with Megan Ford close behind in 4th. The women's lacrosse team just started their season, led by a new head coach. Kaylee Coleman has the story.
The Furman women's lacrosse team just started their season, and this year with a new coach. Kirkland Lewis is named head coach in November 2021 and has immediately felt at home.
This is really the first place where I've felt really welcomed right away and that I've been able to be myself.
Coach Kirkland brings positivity, structure, and high expectations to this team of winning the Big South Championship.
Since it's our first season in the conference, we really want to make a statement as a team, really brand Furman and show them what we're about.
Coach Kirkland isn't just helping the team win games on the field, but she also has big goals for the future of this team as well. Coach Kirkland Lewis is heavily involved in diversity and inclusion efforts in the lacrosse world, and it's something she wants to bring to Furman.
My first thought in how to bring diversity to this program specifically is just to make it more accessible, representing Furman at more camps and clinics and showcases throughout the summer, putting on more camps and clinics here at Furman.
Although the team is welcoming and ready for change, there are some obstacles.
Working against, stereotypes or reputations that might already be out there about the South or about our school, and just representing my experience here to the best of my ability.
The plan? To encourage all races, genders, and ethnicities to find their home at Furman and on the lacrosse team.
We're excited to see what Coach Kirtland adds to the Furman community. Speaking of coaches, Furman football brought in another coach of their own. Here's that story.
Furman football staff is welcoming former Presbyterian coach Tommy Spengler as their new defense coordinator and special teams coach.
With Coach Hendricks being here, doing the kind of job him and his staff are doing, it just drew me here, and so far so good. The thing I've noticed is the people. The kids are awesome, the coaches are awesome, the people I've met around campus have been wonderful to me. Everybody's just really friendly, made me feel welcome. So that's been probably the biggest plus.
Head coach Clay Hendricks says he's excited for the wealth of knowledge Spengler will bring and has always been impressed with the job he's done.
But just looking forward to continuing to develop these guys, help them out, and become better players, better people, better husbands one day, better fathers one day, that type thing.
At the Southern Conference Championships in Lexington, Virginia, 5 individuals and the women's distance medley relay team all placed gold. These also included individual meet records as well as school records. The meet records are as follows. Women's distance, we have Megan Marvin placing gold and securing both a school and meet record in 800 meter. Then we have Madeline Cadeau also catching the gold in the 3,000 meter. Now on to the men's distance. First up, we have Carson Williams snatching the gold in men's 3,000 meter. Then we have Cameron Ponder placing gold in men's distance mile, securing a meet record and a sub 4-minute mile. Now on to the men's distance. First up, we have Carson Williams snatching the gold in men's 3,000 meter. Then we have Cameron Ponder placing gold in men's distance mile, securing a meet record and a sub 4-minute mile. Finally, the women's distance medley relay team did us proud by securing the gold and showing the Paladin pride. Congratulations, everyone. Not many home games to attend this weekend, so come out and show your support. This weekend, the men's tennis team will play against Elon at 2 p.m. on Saturday, and women's lacrosse will have their first home game, also against Elon at 2. We hope to see you there. That's all we have for sports. Back to you, Kayla.
Thanks, Neci. Another Paladin who's making her mark is Brooke Dominiak. We want to congratulate her for winning the SoCon pitch competition. Look at that big check of $10,000, which will help her build her To Go Bros brand. That's all for us. We hope everyone has a happy and safe spring break. Thank you for joining us for the Nightly News. I'm your host, Kayla Patterson. Now we'll leave you with more scenes of the yard show from last weekend.